against President Perez, and in other countries as well. But it's very interesting to see the continuation also, in which countries the mainly policy protest interruptions have led to popular sovereignty, and others, with some actors in between. And the interesting thing about Venezuela there, the president between Perez and Chavez was Caldera, that in fact was even more neoliberal in his economic policies. But Carlos Andrés Perez, as I declared, he was sacrificed. He became the symbol of the discontentment with the old system, with the Venezuelan partyarchy that once was the exceptional model of democracy for Latin America, according to many observers. So it's, of course, but there is a tendency, of course, to see, but still a combination of, and the role of media in all this has been decisive as well, especially in Venezuela. They play important roles.
Well, another place, of course, where policy matters was corruption.
Yes.
Policy matters, economic disaster, but they get the scandals. So these things are clearly intertwined. So when I try to code these, I have some stricter coding rules of what occurs first, what comes after, and also looking at the messages in the protest as far as that is possible in so many cases over so many years. So the point was really, had there been an attempt to remove the president before the scandal, for instance in the Carlos Andrés Perez case, did the scandal just come as an excuse late in the process? What was going on before? Had there been any clear attempts to remove him before this scandal occurred? Because what the scandal made was, of course, make congressional actions and court actions. But of course, as you know as well as you write, something had been going on in Venezuela for some years.
Exactly, and the snowball effect as well. Color de Melo and the impeachment of him contributed to hope among Venezuelans in that case. It could be possible here too. Let's find and
we know that Serrano was totally inspired by Fujimori. He did in '93. He spoke to several of Serrano's ministers last year, and what he was talking about in the internal meeting was Fujimori, and what he did so successfully. He moved Congress, and how good wouldn't that be? Because Congress is a thing. But of course, Serrano wasn't successful in what he did. So clearly, and especially the cases in 92-93 are quite related. Serrano they also had a watchful eye on Carlos Andrés Perez and what was occurring in Venezuela, because there were some thinking of trying to impeach Serrano as well. To avoid what was going on with Carlos Andrés Perez and doing what Fujimori did.
I don't remember, but wasn't the military involved in attacking Serrano?
Yeah.
So in fact, one is an example of military interference in politics.
Oh yeah. And in several of these cases, the military as in Ecuador last week, will the military support the president or not? So in several cases, the military they knocked on the door of Abdullah Boko Haram, saying, "No, sorry." And at that point, of course, the president had to go. Also, you saw it with Gonzalo Santos Lozada. The military was explaining to the president, "Sorry, you're out." So, but the interesting thing of course in Guatemala, they had a much more active role, and they just said, they didn't want to support Serrano. Actually, when Serrano published his decree closing Congress, at least some influential voices in Guatemala has it that it was the military that asked the Constitutional Court to declare that moving unconstitutional. Because the old institutions didn't fight like Congress, Supreme Court, but the new Constitutional Court, they declared, you know, this is unconstitutional, we can't have this, this is undemocratic, and by doing this, Serrano, you're out. But I spoke to some people with good relations within the military that argued that it was actually the military that went down there and said, you have to write this. So in a sense, quite ironic, the military saved the day. Yeah. Somewhat. So it's not always the military as the bad guys. Not often, but not always. So, but they're not as clear actors. In Honduras' case as well, both Zelaya and the opposition tried to convince the military of supporting their case. And in the end, the military decided on supporting the opposition. And then Zelaya was out. But clearly, and they did not do it as elegantly as, you know, they did it on TV with the president in pajamas standing in Costa Rica. They were as stupid as they could be. But clearly, the side where the military falls down is important, or that they stay in the barracks.
Or the case where when they almost removed the Chavez in 2002.
Yeah.
Another story of another snowball effect is also that the opposition in Venezuela tried the anti-Bucaram strategy to declare Chavez insane.
Yeah.
And I heard, I have not seen the facts, that Abdallah Bucaram sent the facts to Hugo Chavez. Ten cuidado, Hugo, lo hicieron a mí.
Yeah.
Be careful with that. But because the opposition has tried everything in Venezuela to get rid of Hugo Chavez. Yeah. But the situation in Venezuela during Chavez is not touched upon. It was not a case according to your...
2002, well, it depends, but the way I read the...
We had a situation there.
Yeah. Oh, it was clearly a fake case of a coup. But when I distinguish these cases, I also look at the outcome, you know, that civilian democracy survived. So the way I read the declaration of Pedro Carmona afterwards was, we closed this institution, we closed this institution. It was the declaration of a civilian maybe, but non-democratic regime. So if they had succeeded, democracy, or the type of democracy at least, would have ended then and there. So, declaring, you know, the cheering voices that you're closing this and this institution is not smart these days. So had it been successful, it would probably be a full democratic breakdown. But you also have to distinguish between coups and democratic breakdown, because if you have a democratic breakdown, you know, you have some lasting period of non-democracy. So the discussion is, of course, in Honduras, what occurred in Honduras. Okay, it was a coup because it was the military that took away Zelaya, but when they did so, they did give power to the next in line, which would be the Congress president. So, kind of democracy. Okay. If it's not, well, they had elections with the same candidates they would have had for Zelaya. So, but that's a great international debate, of course, what Honduras is today and what to do with Honduras. But at least they returned to some sort of civilian regime under the same set of constitutional rules. So had Venezuela been successful in 2002, it would have been a coup and democratic breakdown, probably, I would say, due to what one could read out of that declaration on that day. Because it would constitute a totally different regime. They would out with the Constitution, out with the Supreme Court, out with the Congress. In Honduras, at least, they kept all of these. Not necessarily good politicians or a good Supreme Court, but the same Constitution. But that's a good thing to say about